CCU Orlando and Aikens Counseling Center present The Authentic Spiritual Journey, a weekly show featuring real and practical spiritual conversations from diverse perspectives here on the Experience of the Soul podcast channel. Today, episode 38, MyFeelingReality. And now, your host, Reverend Cynthia Alice Anderson.
Welcome to the Authentic Spiritual Journey. I'm RCA, and I am the host of the show. And as always, we're so glad you joined us. We are here in 818 Studios with my super cool producer.
I'm super cool, Dave Croft, not Dave Osborne. Super Dave Osborne. I am Dave Croft. What is happening, everybody? Thank you so much for joining us on a Monday morning.
That's right. Happy Monday. We always like to be one of the first to welcome you into your work week. And you know, I love starting my Monday off with the podcast. I love re-listening to it. And I'll be honest, I've learned a lot from it. I've learned a lot from your comments and suggestions. So thank you for that. So happy Monday.
Yep, happy Monday. And I don't know if you saw the recent stats. Do you know we're in 18 countries?
I know. That's really unbelievable. And today we are saying hello to one of those countries.
Yes, every week. As long as we remember doing it, every week, We're going to honor one of those countries. And so we want to give a salute
today,
to Canada.
Canada. Oh, Canada.
The Great White North. And we promise not to do terrible accents.
What do you mean, eh?
Oh, you did it. I don't know. Don't you know?
Don't you know?
Yeah. So we have back bacon and hockey. And see, I'm not doing an impression of an accent. I'm doing my impression of Bob and Doug McKenzie.
Right. You know, some of the best people I know have been Canadians.
I know.
You love Canada, you guys got it going on. Your beautiful work with First Nations peoples, your acknowledgement, your government's acknowledgement of the First Nations people and the appropriate apology to the First Nations people, your healthcare system.
Yeah, and what they did for the Vancouver Olympics, the opening ceremonies.
No.
Wow. That moved me to tears. And it made me think, wow, U.S. is a little lagging in that.
We're really seen as kind of backwoods right now throughout the world. But I'll tell you, friends, we try not to be white people that don't know anything. We try to be aware, and we really honor Canada as really a leader in terms of. Well, I was going to say human rights and civil rights, just being good humans, you know, and I've been there so many times. I even had a teacher in Canada and all the great musicians from Canada.
I know Rush is from Canada. Michael J. Fox, even though he's not a musician. Michael J. Fox is from Canada.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Ryan Reynolds.
Leonard Cohen,
absolutely.
Katie Lang. KD.
Yep. So Canada, you guys are doing it right. Thank you so much. You've got an uncomfortably hot prime minister because politicians shouldn't look that smexy.
Dave, you're straight.
Hey, I appreciate beauty wherever beauty is.
Exactly. We all notice, don't we? That's the truth. But we do honor you, and I also want to say that we just passed over 11,000 downloads. By now, we could be up to 13,000, 14,000. So I can't tell you what that means to me. I remember when we started, it's still less than a year, friends. Mm-hmm. It's only about 8 months that the podcast has been rolling, and I can't tell you what it means to me that already we're in 18 countries, over 11,000 downloads. And we encourage you also to please, if you do feel supported by this, guided by this, illumined by this, please share it with your friends. It would be a great, as we say down south, this would be good fodder. This would be good fodder for your conversations, for your friendships, because it's really about how we're living the authentic spiritual journey and some tools to help you out. And, you know, we're learning right along with you, friends. So we don't have all the answers, but what we do have is our journey to share. And I have over 30 years of working with people to share with you too. I've learned so much from the people I've served with and for. And so we're happy to bring that to you in the form of this show, The Authentic Spiritual Journey.
Right on.
Yeah, this is today, show 38. And this is coming off our last show. We ended a little bit with this, and the title of the show is MyFeelingReality. Before I go much into this, I feel like I should give a caveat to that title, because in general, I think especially in this country, well, in the West, I should say, we give a little. There's two things that go on for me about feelings. One, they need to be one, they absolutely need to be acknowledged. Number two, we also give them way too much credence. So it's an interesting paradox for me to find myself in because an important part of my healing journey has been and continues to be beginning to understand how I feel. And that sounds, I know, so baseline in terms of emotional intelligence. But when I started this journey, and I've shared this before, when I started this journey, and I would say seriously in my 20s, even though I was sure trying in my late teens, it was probably seriously in my mid 20s. I learned that I even had feelings, and then my late 20s, I could finally, start to name what those feelings were. Well, then I started learning about something called a feeling reality. So all that's going on. Well, but then there's also the aspect, and I've had many teachers on the journey from therapists that have become, mentors who I've known for years and years. But I've also had teachers, speaking of First Nations people, of the Native way. And feelings in Native spirituality are seen not necessarily as uber important in the way they are in white culture. They might be telling you something, they might be guiding you, but not everything is about how you feel because there's a commitment to the larger community. So even though I do think this is important, it's also important to keep perspective. Is this making any sense, Dave? What I'm saying?
Absolutely. You've got to balance it. Can you unpack when you say we give feelings too much importance or we've given too much?
Well,
can you what does that does that mean?
Well, here's what I mean. If we run around saying, well, I feel this and I feel that, like everybody is offended right now. Everybody gets their feelings hurt right now. It's like, well, you said something and that hurt my feelings. Okay, grow up. Okay, yes, it hurt your feelings, and we don't want to try to do that, okay? But if all we ever are is this walking open wound of like, I feel, how do we grow up and say, yes, I have a feeling about that, and my feelings are not all of who I am? So I don't think we want to give ourselves, I don't think we just want to become feelings. It's like, okay, well, I feel, I don't know. The word that keeps coming to my mind is disrespected. Okay, that's not really a feeling. We have to respect ourselves. So, you know what I mean? So I just feel like, especially right now, in politics and, in life, everybody hears something. Everybody goes 0 to 60 so fast. Well, I feel this and I feel that. Well, just because you have a feeling doesn't mean somebody needs to change. And so that's what I mean. I think sometimes, and I'm saying right now, it seems like in the last 5 to 10 years, feelings are getting so much importance that just because somebody has a feeling about it, people think whole systems need to change or everybody needs to change because I have a feeling about something.
Now,
you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I do. I want to push back a little bit, or maybe just have you kind of unpack it a little bit, because I have heard that kind of grow up. I've heard that weaponized against people being called, you just buckle up, snowflake, or SJWs or PC count, culture and all of that.
Yes.
So I think we got to be careful not to swing the whole other way, and everybody's got to pull themselves up by the bootstraps. And,
oh no, for sure.
So where's that middle ground? How do you parse that?
Well, I think by taking responsibility for our feeling reality, and that's what I mean is that I don't want us to always be going outward for validation for how we feel, or that everyone needs to change just because I have a feeling. You know what I mean? So if I come up in the studio and I have a feeling about something, well, I'm going to deal with that feeling. I'm not going to make it your problem. Do you know what I mean? You're not going to have to change. I'm going to deal with my feeling reality. I mean, I didn't, but I'm just taking that as a for instance, right? So if I came up here and said, because remember you said, I was just finishing a class, I'm just setting up. I'm like, no problem. It was actually great because I wanted a minute to breathe. But if it had been a problem, let's say, I'm making up a story right now. As a matter of fact, that's a language I use. So let me back up. If I came in and I expected you to take responsibility for my feelings, and you said to me, "Oh man, I just finished a class and I haven't been set up," I would start making up a story that said, Dave didn't set up for me because Dave disrespects me.
Mm.
So I would look at your behavior and make up a story and then build evidence
Right, to corroborate.
build evidence to corroborate on something that's not even true. Right? If I'm blaming all of what's happening internally on you.
Gotcha.
But if I come in and I'm like, well, that's a little bit of a drag, I'll go, okay, Dave, when do you think we'll be ready to go? And then you might go, oh, are you in a hurry? I'm not in a hurry, but I do have to get out of here by a certain time. Do you think we can do that? Yeah, cool.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's no weird thing.
Right.
So that's what I mean, that, and a lot of us walk around like this, not taking responsibility for our feelings. And I do think all groups right now are overreactive. I think the LGBTQ community is very reactive. I think the white community is very reactive. I think the Native community is very reactive right now. And I think it's important to take responsibility for where we are and then do something about it.
Yeah, the trick is when, for example, the guy a few weeks ago who set up the fake hate crime.
Oh, yes.
Yeah,
that was crazy.
To ultimately try to get better pay on the show he is in. I think that was
Yep, that was it.
Right? Mm-hmm. And so obviously in today's culture, when that came out, and there's video of him and all of that stuff, or maybe there wasn't, but there was a police report, and then a lot of people came to his defense. And then it came out that it wasn't true. And then that was used. And that, like I said, that was weaponized against everyone who reached out in compassion for that person. Mm-hmm. And so I want to make sure that if you're listening and you hear, you hear us saying, you buck up or whatever, that it's not invalidating how you feel. I think it has to do with what you do with those feelings and what you're at least my interpretation, what you expect someone else to do. Because I can feel like the term Washington Redskins is offensive, even though there have been Native Americans who have come out and said it's not offensive, right? But I feel that it's expensive. It's offensive. So,
well, by and large, any leader in a Native culture would say, my heritage is not a costume or a uniform. That's mine.
And I agree with that.
I know. That's what I'm saying. That yes, by and large, that would be offensive. But again, how do we handle that? And I always come back to, I don't know how. It seems like the show started with a strange feeling that maybe I was saying. So, Dave, I'm making up a story that you're making up a story. Okay. that this means victims should not speak up. No, that's not what I'm saying at all. Certainly, especially if you've heard the show, that I very much honor anybody who's been victimized, needs to speak up, needs to do the right thing, meaning help people be responsible for their wrong actions. We've just seen that in the Catholic Church. Mm-hmm. Recently was someone very, I'm forgetting his position right now, but someone very high up in the Catholic Church in Australia. And so, I think we need to speak up about that. I also believe we don't stay in victimhood. And as much as possible, we work to heal so that we're not a walking wound.
Right.
Because if we don't, we're still giving perpetrators the power. And when we own what our feeling reality is and then try to work within that rather than blaming everybody for what we feel. So then that's when real healing happens.
Yep.
So if you're speaking up or you've been victimized, that's just doing the right thing. But if always after something happens, if we're hurt by a white straight man, and then we say, well, all white straight men will hurt me, and that anything that's done, then we make up stories. Healing has to be done around that.
I think some of it is also, if you have a dominant culture dealing with the realization that maybe maybe they have been dominant or privileged or whatever
Yeah,
you want
right,
to
right,
label
right.
it.
Yeah.
And I think some of that can be an overreaction of that.
Yes.
Is reaching out and being offended for everybody on everybody else's behalf, and those feelings become they take those as my feelings.
Yeah,
Right.
well, I mean, there's a lot of unconscious guilt in the white culture,
Right.
right now, and people are not sure what to do except for like take up for the underdog, which is, hey, I mean, the underdogs do need a voice. As a matter of fact, after my message I did at Pachakasha, because of the nature of it, I had people of color and immigrants, basically every person of color and immigrant from the show, both shows, came up and specifically thanked me. And one person said, this is a very scary time for us immigrants. And I said, yes, I know. And she said, and thank you for speaking it up for us because we cannot speak for ourselves. So, but I wasn't screaming at people. I
Hmm.
wasn't making people wrong and angry. I wasn't trying to hit somebody over the head with a peace sign that says, love me or else.
Right.
Um, and so I took responsibility for how I felt about it
Hmm.
by speaking in a public forum in a way people could hear of all colors.
Right.
And so that's what I mean, that when we're being responsible for our own feelings, when we have these internal reactions, we want to really check them out so we're not just attacking others who don't agree with us.
Right.
They just may not be there yet.
Right.
They may even want to be, and they don't understand.
Or have different experiences, or
Yes.
just come from a different part of the country, different part of the world.
Oh, right, right. And believe me, I'm not excusing people who are white supremacists or,
Right.
racist pigs and all of that, or gay haters or trans haters or whatever. By no means am I saying that. So, friends, I hope you're hearing me when I'm saying that we just want to be a responsible human beings for our feeling reality and ultimately take responsibility for what comes up in us. And, one of the greatest leaders I saw do that was Martin Luther King Jr., Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., when he was attacked over and over and over. He just maintained this solid, grounded, responsiveness that was not reactive at all. And it's why he became the face of the civil rights movement, because he was able to hold his stuff together.
Right.
Without blowing into some kind of rage or reaction.
Yeah. And if he had, then that would have just justified, everything in the minds of everybody else.
Yes,
in the minds of
exactly.
his opponents, it would have absolutely justified, which is, I think, with the whole fake hate crime thing. I think that
was
now that's made it worse for anybody else that comes up after. And the only reason I was kind of pulling at that thread is because if you're in a place where you are feeling that your feelings are real, and you are walking around in that exposed wound place, it can be tough to receive in the
Yes.
spirit in which it was given. It can be tough to receive, buck up, camper.
Yeah. Well, that's true. That is true. And so again, in Native culture, there is a time where you are expected to be a grown up. There's a ceremony, there is a coming into adulthood, and you put away childish things. The Bible says, when I was a child, I spake as a child, I thought as a child, and when I became a man, I put away childish things. So that part I had a hard time relating to, but when I became a human, a woman,
An adult.
I put away those childish things. And so my point is that, and I will also say, in our political leaders today, we are seeing people non-responsible for their feeling reality. They blame countries, they blame other leaders, they blame the people themselves they serve for what's happening, rather than taking responsibility for what's happening. So that's what I mean when I say, grow up, is that just because you have a feeling doesn't mean everyone around you needs to change. It may mean you need to heal. It may mean somebody need to change, but you can't change them. You can only change you.
Right.
And so being responsible for what comes up in you is really a high level of self-awareness that we don't see a lot of, but I'm hoping to see more because I know people are waking up every single day to this idea that we are responsible spiritual beings put here on planet Earth to be a blessing. And to do that, we have to heal our stuff.
And it starts with spiritual awareness.
Totally.
And it starts with, getting out of that the victim-y kind of wormy play. I call it kind of wormy.
I know you need to explain that.
What, wormy?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just that kind of woe is me kind of it's ultimately it's a victim mentality. But it's I don't know, wormy. Does that make sense? Does that unpack it enough? Or did I just say the words in a different order and didn't actually explain myself?
Well, let's think about it over the break.
Okay, I'll try to come up with a definition of wormy.
All right, thanks for joining us, friends. We'll see you in a few minutes.
We'll return to the program in just a few moments, but first, we wanted to give a special word of thanks to our podcast partner, CCU Orlando, who has helped make this episode of the Authentic Spiritual Journey possible. CCU Orlando is a welcoming community dedicated to transforming lives, celebrating diversity, and supporting soul growth. Christ Church Unity is located at 771 Holden Avenue in Orlando, Florida, with Sunday services at 9 and 11 a.m. You can stream services live online as well as learn more at christchurchunity.net. We'd also like to extend our thanks to our podcast partner, Aikens Counseling Center. Cassandra Aikens is a licensed mental health counselor dedicated to creating sacred space where clients can explore their own inner process in a safe, non-judgmental, and supportive environment. She works with individuals, couples, and groups who are seeking to live a more authentic life. Aikens Counseling Center is located in Winter Park, Florida, and can be found on the web at CassandraAikens.com. And now we return you to this week's episode of The Authentic Spiritual Journey.
So welcome back, and thank you for joining us. That might have been kind of an intense first half, I just realized. I think the reason I started out so hot on that topic about taking responsibility for yourself and grow up is that I see a lot of people, honestly, who have a lot to give to the world, and they're so busy whining about getting their feelings hurt when they don't have a big wounded place. They just are not working on themselves, and I'm like, you have all these gifts to the world. Get over this little thing that you keep bringing up. I'm not talking about these big world issues, really, that we're talking about. I'm talking about, somebody said something or didn't say something, or you misunderstood what somebody meant, and now you haven't talked to them for 6 months. I just think as spiritual beings, and I'm going to stop and say, this is a real grounding point for me. We are spiritual beings living in a spiritual universe that is governed by spiritual law. All right. So anytime something comes up for us, something that's difficult, something that's hard to hear, a misunderstanding, or even if we think we've totally been dissed, I'm talking about like a friend or a coworker or our minister or our church, something happens. Rather than taking that on, making up stories, building evidence on top of the story that isn't true, then and marching through life as if this is the only reality, that sometimes we might need to stop, check out what we're feeling, and if we're not sure, go ask the person. This is what I really was intending to go into.
You know what? Can I share a very recent real world instance of this? I received an email a few days ago from one of my bosses. And in the email, he was asking me a question about something that I had already taken care of. But there was another person kind of freaking out about it. Right? So the other person is freaking out about the thing that I took care of because that person didn't know that I took care of the thing. Is this
no, I got it so far. Yeah.
And so freaking out person emailed my boss freaking out about it.
Not knowing you'd done it.
Not knowing I'd done it, even though I had communicated to them that I had done it, to the people that are freaking out.
Yes.
You need like a,
Jeez.
You need like
I need a freaking diagram for
diagram.
This. This is exactly how relationship is.
And
this is exactly why I'm talking about it.
And so I get an email from my boss saying, why, not even why haven't you taken care of, but will you please take care of this? I thought you already did question mark, question mark, question mark in an email. And for me, one of my triggers is like a lot of exclamation points, all caps.
Oh God, I'm glad you told me.
I'm like, are you yelling at me? What the heck? Why And so if you put 3 question marks after a question in an email to me, it's might as well be going, Dave. Right?
Like, what's wrong with you,
Yeah,
Dave?
exactly. Why didn't you do this?
So the story you made up is the 3 question marks means what's wrong with you, Dave?
That I messed up and I immediately felt the need to defend myself.
I bet.
And that was after I went downstairs and totally just vomited all over Shannon. Like, I'm so angry. Now, the good news is that we're in a place in our relationship where I'll say, hey, this isn't you. I just need to vent under the guise.
Like, you don't have to fix this right now. Just
this
listen.
is not yours, but please, I got to get this out. And so I just went, bleh, and I knew it was the wrong thing to do. She couldn't do anything about it. And it wasn't even cathartic for me to do it. It was just that anger had to be pointed somewhere. I knew I didn't need to put it in an email. So that's learning. That's growth. Right?
At least you didn't do that. Yes.
But the story I made up is this person thinks I'm an idiot. I have to defend myself. Yeah. That's not at all, because I did email back and I said, hey, I did take care of this. And here is how I took care of it. And the email back I got was essentially, I know, right?
Yeah.
Like, I know you took care of it. Why are they? Why?
Well, yeah, and you know what I thought when you said the 3 question marks was, he was as confused as you were. Mm-hmm. The question marks meant, what's wrong with this guy? Exactly. Not what's wrong with you.
Exactly. Because I got my feelings hurt.
Right.
And I was like all offended. And I went downstairs, took it out on my poor wife, who was, getting over a giant cold and everything. And she's literally like in bed. She's good with it. She knew it wasn't her or whatever. But that was not the proper response. Thankfully, it didn't get pointed into an email, but that's very world.
This is why I exercise. This is what I do with it, because, I had someone, first of all, let me just say, yes, with what you're saying, taking responsibility, though, at least you did look at yourself and you didn't fire back something that was in total defense and whatever the word might be, inappropriate. You were like, okay, I'm going to go process with somebody who can at least hear me out.
Go dump on my wife.
Go dump on my wife. Well, better than ripping off,
torching a relationship with your boss.
Yeah, burning a bridge or just reacting in anger. People will be like, God, what's wrong with him? I was as confused as him. An email, I want to say too, is one of those things that you can really read into. I've learned it with staff and with boards, and with our new board, and just the other day with someone on staff, I said, before you actually respond to this, pick up the phone and just find out what's really going on, because chances are what you're reading into it is really not there, because I don't see that reading into it, because, I didn't have the same trigger about it. I said, it doesn't feel great, but there were probably, something they were having, feeling a lot of responsibility for, so there was energy behind it, but it's not personal usually.
Yeah, absolutely.
99 times out of 100, people are not attacking you via email.
Oh, no.
It's more like they're processing and don't even give a thought to the question marks or the caps.
Right.
As a matter of fact, I read in caps better, so I'm often, like I commented on somebody's Facebook and they said, why are you yelling at me? And I was like, oh, sorry. I said, like, not that I know of. And in all caps, and they, was answering something.
You might, what? Not that I know of.
Not that I know of. And I was like, oh, sorry. I said, oops, caps lock. It's just how I operate. So,
yeah, I have a client who's sweet as the day is long, and all of her emails are in caps.
All the sweet women in your life that send you.
They are all in all caps all the time. And the first couple, I was like, I feel like I'm doing a good job for you. Why are you yelling?
Why are you yelling? Exactly. Yeah. And some of us don't even know those rules because our minds don't work that way. Yeah. See, that if somebody did all caps to me, I would not give it a second thought. Yep. And if one word was capped, I would assume it was for emphasis because of how they were feeling. I don't think I would assume. Right. Every now and then one will get under my skin, but I definitely don't answer it.
Yeah, and I think that comes from just being really, really computer savvy, spending a lot of time
It's true.
online,
It's true.
communicating, the way we
true.
communicate with our students at Full Sail and everything, it's all in email. And so even with Shannon, we were in college when the internet started becoming a thing. So we were the first generation who really learned to adapt the internet and computer life like that into everyday work culture.
Yes.
Because I think before our generation, it was, interoffice mail stuffed into, manila envelopes and stuck up into little suction tubes throughout buildings.
Which actually sounds really good to me right now. I'm over email. I would love to never I'm going to vision this for my life. I would love to never send an email again or receive one. I think it's the worst form of communication. I think it rarely saves time. I think it is often misconstrued. Every now and then, it's okay. 12 emails later, still don't have an appointment with somebody. Pick up the phone. It would be so much easier. So what we're talking about, friends, is our feeling reality. That's how I feel about email, and I'm owning it. And it's nobody else's problem but mine. Nobody has to feel bad that sent an email lately. So if you're listening and you sent me an email, it'd be like, oh crap, I sent her 3 emails last week.
She's talking to me. I know she's talking to me. And that gets into codependency that we talked about 3 episodes ago.
It's all related, friends.
It's the backwards hat guy all over again.
I know, right? So we're talking about taking responsibility for how we feel, not giving, and the other thing is, just because we have a feeling, it doesn't mean anything actually needs to change. So that's another thing I mean by giving him too much credence. So we're human beings. If we read into something wrong, or somebody says something a little bit offensive, it's like, okay, how do I want to handle that?
Like the 3 question mark thing.
Yeah, exactly.
There is no tangible benefit for me to approach my boss and say, "Hey, man, your 3 question marks really offended me, and it made me feel weird. So how about not doing that?"
Yeah, that's over processing.
That's it's not like he's hurling racial slurs at me.
Yes,
that behavior.
exactly.
Yes, let's address that behavior.
Exactly. That gets addressed. But these other little things, no.
And especially now, I can kind of, hey, I don't think my boss is meaning like whenever he puts 3 question marks. I know that now because I processed through it.
Right.
But there's no real tangible benefit for me trying to get him to change his behavior on that.
Right. So and sometimes I want to give you guys a few phrases that'll help. But it works the best if the person you're doing this with also knows this language. But even if they don't, it usually works. So somebody I worked with years ago gave it to me, which is, the story I'm making up about this is. The story I'm making up about this is.
And we will have this in our
We'll
show
have
notes.
this in the show notes. So let's say for Dave, if he got that, can I use that email as an example?
Yep, please do.
So when he got that email with the 3 question marks, he could have said, boy, the story I'm making up with myself right now is that those 3 question marks actually mean something about me and my value.
Exactly. It means he thinks I'm stupid and that I did not do my job.
So the story I'm making up is, my boss thinks I'm stupid and didn't do my job. I wonder if this is true, right? And then you learn to check it out. So it's great in partnership too, because, we do the worst. We think we know what the other person means the worst in our most intimate relationships.
One of the things that me and Shannon try to embrace is in the absence of information, your worst fears and insecurities will substitute the worst possible outcome.
Yes.
Like in the vacuum of information, you will put in whatever the absolute worst situation, you will put that in and substitute it as your reality.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely true.
And it's almost never right.
Right. And it goes into insecurity. And even if it were the worst, let's say the time you imagine it's the worst thing it is, you're still going to live through it.
That's right.
It's like, okay, so somebody thought you did a bad job.
This too shall pass.
Right. I just said to my son the other day that the most profound thing in the Bible is, and it came to pass.
Yep.
And that's, again, keeping perspective on our feelings. They're going to come and they're going to go. So if we give them so much credence that every single thing has to be checked out, every single thing has to be processed, and which is big for me to say because I'm a big processor.
Yeah.
You know, sometimes it just does not matter that much.
Yep.
Sometimes you just let it go because somebody was having a bad day, or maybe they weren't overly thoughtful when they said that or sent that. But I had a situation once where a woman left the church. She was in a group of about 5 or 6 people, and I was walking into the sanctuary, and I did not say hello to her, but I said hello to the person next to her. And I was completely unaware of it because there's always so many people. I cannot possibly say hi to every single person when I'm like, dashing in.
And getting mobbed.
At
there's so many people around you.
3 minutes before the
Right.
service starts, I have to get to my seat and greet the people sitting down. That's just a part of what I do. And so, I hadn't seen her for a while, and then I can't remember, her name came up on something. I thought, where is she? I wonder if she's okay. So I called her and I said, hey, how are you doing? She said, I can't believe you called because I've been really mad at you. And I said, I am so sorry. I want to apologize, but I'm actually not sure for what. Tell me what happened. And so she told me, the situation that I hadn't said hi to her or whatever. And I said, if that is that important to you, if I'm coming by, say, hey, Reverend Alice, and I will say, hey, I said, because I just can't say hi to everybody, and we made our amends, and it was fine. She didn't stay, at the church, but that's fine. But that was really a source of pain for her. But had she checked it out, she could have found out immediately and kept her community instead of just, going away.
Withdrawing, yeah. All right. So that was phrase number 1. The story I'm making up about this is.
Right. So in her case, and she could have said something like, the story I'm making up is that when you went by and didn't say hello, that you don't love me. And that's really ultimately what she was feeling. And I said, oh my gosh, because I actually really liked her too. So yeah, the story I'm making up about this is, and then we could also say, what I want you to know about where I am too. Sometimes that's really important. Well, what I want you to know is I'm feeling tired, and then the old phrase that our therapist friends love that are very helpful, I feel blank when if we're trying to talk it out, well, I'm making up a story. Oh, well, no, that's not what I meant at all. Well, I feel sad when you are on the phone and I'm trying to talk to you. Mm-hmm. So if you were my partner and you were on the phone and I was trying to say something to you that was, about my day or important, and that you're like this doing something, I could say, hey, sweetie, I want to tell you something. I'm making up a story right now that when you're on your phone, that means that you don't respect me or you don't love me. Oh my gosh, sorry. I wasn't even paying attention. Thank you for telling me that. I don't disrespect you at all.
Question.
Yeah.
How do you know when you need to communicate, I feel blank when you blank, or whether you should let it go? For example, should I email my boss and say, I feel like you don't think I'm doing a good job when you put 3 question marks on an email? You know what I'm saying?
No, and that's what I mean about giving it too much credence. I think when there's really something going on, and especially if it seems like a pattern, man, I've tried to talk to you about this a couple times and it keeps happening, and I feel sad when you're on your phone and I'm trying to talk to you, So, and then not expecting anything from the other person. It's like, so this is really a feeling check-in with your coupleship. So the other person's job is to only listen, not to solve or advise. You just say, thank you. So if I said to you, Dave, you know what, Dave? I know we've talked about this several times. I just feel sad sometimes when I'm trying to talk to you and you're on your device. And I just wanted you to know. And you would say, thank you. Then I would say, is there anything you want to tell me? Well, RCA, when you blank.
When you email me in all caps.
Yeah. Right. When you email me in all caps, I would, and I go, oh, okay. Well, so I would stop that. You know what I mean?
So yeah, the question is, and I'm really just kind of working it out, is there a litmus test? Is there some sort of, a like hypothesis method that you can apply so that you can work that out. You know what I mean?
Well, yeah. I mean, I think if there's an issue where you're really not feeling heard and you say, I really want to check in with you about something, which of course always makes the partner scared. Or the other option, and we were doing this for a while. We don't really do it anymore. But in my partnership, we were every day saying, we were doing a feeling check-in at the end of every day. It takes 5 minutes, and it's, I feel sad, I feel whatever. We kind of just use the sad, mad, glad, joy, all the kind of the basics. And I can give you those too for the show notes. But every day we do a feeling check-in, took 5 minutes at the end of the day. You have to do it, with nothing turned on, with complete focus on the other person. One person shares their feelings, the other one listens, and then that's it. And then, of course, the idea is if you love someone and you know that something you're doing repeatedly bothers them or has a negative impact, you either want to, as the loving partner, figure out how to do it less, not at all, or how you can communicate what's happening so that it helps the other person unwind that.
Right.
You're not responsible for how they feel, but if my partner said to me, for instance, gee, you know what? Every time I try to talk to you recently, I've noticed you're on your phone. I feel sad when I try to talk to you and you're on your phone. And again, I'm just using this as an example because I see couples do this all the time. And then I would be like, oh my God, I don't want her feeling sad. And gee, I'm being a clod here. I'm not paying attention.
And at some point, it's not that important to you. For example, early in our marriage, like I really wanted a motorcycle really bad. Mm-hmm. And so I was pushing it about it and everything. And Shannon was kind of, but if she could say this, ultimately, she would say, I feel scared.
Yes, that you want to get
that with you, the idea of you on a motorcycle.
Right.
And I decided early that it is not worth me having a motor. It's not worth me essentially instilling in her a sense of fear just because Dave wants a motorcycle. Mm-hmm. Right. And
I mean, you kind of want to caretake the people you love. There's nothing wrong with that.
The motorcycle is not more important
than Shannon
than the security of my wife.
Yes, exactly.
Now there is an interesting coda to that story.
You have now
For my 40th birthday, Shannon got me motorcycle lessons. That was my 40th birthday present, and part of it was her honoring I put air quotes around sacrifice because it was no sacrifice. It was just me not getting a motorcycle. But she wanted to honor that. She recognized, I know you wanted this. And so here.
Yeah, right.
And it was really like the day of my 40th birthday, I was learning how to ride a motorcycle.
Oh, that is awesome. Yeah. That's a great gift. And again, being in relationship, we learn, I've heard people say a relationship's 50-50. I said, no way. It's 100-100.
That's right. Yeah.
You're always giving 100% in all the interactions. And relationships are much better, friends, trust me on this one, when we are responsible for our feeling reality, when we can pull back those projections that are, making up stories and then building evidence. We want to be responsible, spiritual beings on the journey. And as we do that, we can check it out. If something does hit a nerve or we are in a misunderstanding with another, what we really want to do is check that out and take the time, because what we know is that healed relationships and healing from within out, is ultimately what happens when we're responsible for how we feel. So I hope you'll take some of these lessons into your relationships and certainly into your most intimate ones, because that's where you will find the most support, I think, for the lessons. But we bless you for joining us as always. We appreciate you sharing your time with us. Every Monday, we're happy to bring you the show, and blessings on the journey.
Yeah, I need to go apologize to Shannon.
Oops.
When she just took it like a champ, I just pulled off my face mask and I turned into an alien. So
that's it. You go clean it up, and that's fine.
I'm going to go apologize.
Well, that's taking responsibility for your feelings too.
That's right.
So.
That's right.
All right, my friends.
We'll see you next week.
Next time.
We hope you've enjoyed this episode of The Authentic Spiritual Journey, presented by CCU Orlando and Aikens Counseling Center here on the Experience of the Soul podcast channel. This channel is made possible through the continued support of our angel patrons Dove Borland, Angela Martinez, Peter Gibson, and Paul Caswell, along with our partner patrons CCU Orlando and Aikens Counseling Center. If you would like to help be a part of bringing shows like this and other programs to the channel, please consider becoming a patron. For more information, episode show notes, and details about our other programs on the channel, head over to experienceofthesoul.com. And if you enjoyed this program, you can help spread the word by leaving a 5-star review on Apple Podcast, Google Play, Stitcher, or the podcast platform of your choice. The Authentic Spiritual Journey is copyright 2019 Cynthia Alice Anderson, all rights reserved. Our theme music is composed by Dave Croft and used with permission. The Experience of the Soul podcast channel is a production of 818 Studios.